Hi, my name is Winsley, and welcome to my video discussing the likelihood that Age of Wonders 4 will have a cloud-based MP save file system, my thoughts on Age of Wonders Planetfall's MP system, and how other games have handled their MP save files. This week I'm joined by Bad Wolf, who inspired me to make this video when he mentioned in our last MP session how much they dislike Planetfall's save system compared to how other games handle it. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Uh, yeah, it's mostly just uh, about legacy reasons, as in if the game ever dies, then the servers will probably be shut down, and then multiplayer can't really continue because all of their saves are stored on the cloud.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it was a big thing that I hadn't considered when up until when you mentioned it, and it's a big deal because I love playing Planetfall multiplayer, and if just like in a year or two that disappeared, I'd be pretty sad. Um, I did want to start with a little bit of a disclaimer about how I could have reached out to the devs on the forums to see if they'd be willing to talk about that yet, the how they're handling MP save files. Um, but I figured that we would just make this discussion because in my mind I see this as more than just an Age of Wonders 4 video. I think this is a just an interesting discussion in general about how certain companies have been leaning towards cloud-based save files and why they're doing it versus other companies that are doing like okay, you just save the file on your computer and then you have access to it. Because it does seem like to me that there's kind of a pretty big division in different communities. Some communities are going into one direction, and other communities are going in the other direction for entirely different reasons. Um, I think, in my mind, it's like almost guaranteed that we're probably getting another cloud-based system. How about you, Bad Wolf? Do you think that Age of Wonders 4 is probably going to run off of a similar system to what we have in Planetfall?
Well, I assume so if they are working with the same engine, as like these kinds of systems are usually you build them and then you reuse them a couple of times since they're based on built for the engine itself.
I know
Um,
Amik mentioned that it was more stable than previous Age of Wonders games, so I think because of that reason, they're probably going to keep the system because stability is very important. If a save file breaks, then the game's just done, right?
yeah, so stability is mostly just an implementation detail, really. But the stable part of it is that it if it is stored on the cloud, then like they have this one source of truth, so they don't have to like basically ask a player for it and try and get it from them and then spread it around, things like that. But in other games like Stellaris, etc., you usually have one player who is like the host, so he's the source of truth, and anything he has should be thrown around. So it's just a difference in how they would implement it, really.
I could see there being like some issues with the cloud-based system that they didn't predict that they just want to avoid going forward. For example, uh, if the somebody gets kicked out of a game, they can't load back in. That's pretty annoying. In Stellaris, if you have a player who can't make a session, the AI can take over for a week, and then the next week when you go to host the game, somebody can just hot join in as an AI nation. Whereas in Planetfall, if like I'm so scared to even open this menu. It terrifies me. It gives me such massive anxiety. If I click one of these X's, that game's gone forever, and that leads to me to just filling up this list and constantly having anxiety every time I have to delete one of them. And I'm sure that doesn't sound like a big deal until like you've experienced that every weekend for years. Um, but yeah, no, I really don't like how I've only got like 10 slots in the cloud, which makes sense, you know, like if you've only got so many spaces, um, you if everybody's gonna be using the same cloud, then you've only gonna want to give out so much space to each individual player. I could see some people keeping like hundreds, if not thousands, of saves just because they don't like to delete things. Kind of like I don't want to lose access to these, but you know, it's slightly different. because if you've got hundreds of saves, at some point is might as well just get rid of them, right?
Yeah.
But for me,
There is also the part with having saves, so not on the cloud. In that that usually works better for like if you want to, I don't know, keep playing the game versus AI, like have AI take over for you, or like play it with someone else, or have like try different things. For example, here, if you have a save for a multiplayer, you can't like save, play it a bit, and then if you have a problem or want to see if like how the game would go different if you made this decision instead, you can't go back to it because you only have the one save on the cloud. You don't really
right.
have control over it at all.
I think I saw something in Civ 6 which it reminded me of both systems. Like I couldn't load up the multiplayer and single player to just check out what was on the map to make a bit of a plan in between sessions. I think it was it was kind of like a cloud save. I didn't have my own local save, which was interesting because it was like, yeah, a little bit of both worlds. Um, Sorry, I lost my
I
train of
think
thought. I don't know. I think yeah, having access to the files and being able to load up is better, but it's like something that doesn't make sense in competitive settings because of some people will abuse that. Like,
oh
but
yeah, of course.
after a while it starts to become apparent that somebody's abusing certain systems and you just stop playing with those people if that's happening in your multiplayer community. I'm a big fan of like casual multiplayers, which it's a situation where you're more likely to have people who miss a week. If you've got people who are playing competitively, they're not going to want the AI to like mess with their nation. But I think like, Age of Wonders 4 seems like a game that's more like Stellaris, more like a simulation, and something that could appeal to people who want to play a little bit more casually. So for that reason, I could see them moving away from the cloud-based system to more of like a local save file based system. Um,
Clouds do give a lot of information as well, though. Like they have an easier if you have a cloud save, they have an easier time of figuring out if people like how people are playing, what kind of things are happening, like how they're engaging with the game, and that's like extra information, I guess. I guess we would have a disclaimer somewhere that you would have to agree to that they would be collecting this information with how the laws are written now. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's it's a complicated topic that I think has a lot of nuance to it. But I'm excited to actually see how they change things, how they implement it in Age of Wonders 4, because I have a feeling that won't be like exactly the same as what we got in Planetfall. Um, but yeah, we'll see when they're ready to release that information. Is there anything else on this topic that you wanted to add, Bad Wolf?
don't think so. It's just like there are a lot of implementations of save systems, so it like there are some games that only have both. This is actually considered. There's also the topic of replays. For example, StarCraft 2 has replays, but they just store all the inputs, and then you have to like replay the inputs on top, so they don't have a state for it. And I think there are a couple of games who also treat their save files this way, though that's usually not a very good way to do it, since then it takes a long time to replay all of it on top.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that could be a pain. But I totally agree. It's interesting when you look at other games and how they've implemented it, because they're gonna have their own like version of it, their own tweak to the traditional system. It's always getting better. Even if like you want to do something that in a way that works, you're gonna want to get better and improve it. And sometimes that means borrowing from entirely different systems. Like the cloud-based system can learn a lot from local saves, and I think local saves can learn a lot from the cloud-based system. As long as the game is reliable, it's not crashing, I'm pretty happy. Like that's the
Yeah,
most important
I
thing. If like going back to a local based system would make the game unstable, obviously I want the cloud based system.
yeah, I do feel like they could improve the cloud save system that they had in Planetfall, though. Like, for example, as you said, having new players take over or have the AI take over for a player, or even like be able to copy a game and like have a have another version of the this particular save file or whatever. Like
Yeah.
having more control than just here's the game, you can delete it if you want to.
Yeah, I think being able to send like your multiplayer save file to another person could be interesting too, because that would make you know, like save my game type situations a lot more interesting. I think you could have like two YouTubers get together and save somebody else's co-op situation where they've backed themselves into a corner. Like right now, that's not technically possible because like that save file belongs to the people who started the game. But I see a lot of possibility for interesting things if you allow the ability to have local files and therefore being able to send that file to somebody else to continue. You can also go from single player to multiplayer, from multiplayer to single player. If like say everybody in your multiplayer is kind of over it, you can easily transition over to a single player, and I don't think people will have to surrender. There's some weird stuff between like how you leave a match in Planetfall. Sometimes when you leave, the AI takes over, and sometimes when you leave, all of your cities are just burned down. So just having something where you don't have to like click the surrender button, you just click save and open it up in single player seems like a nice way to get around some of those like technical, those potential technical issues.
For sure.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything I had. I think we can wrap up this video here. It was really fun to talk to you on this topic.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, see you around.